Hello, and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And Tim, it's another week, so let's run through some more fantasy football content, some
You know it.
starts, some sits. If you're new here, welcome. We love having you. And if you've seen the first 3 weeks, you already know how we do this. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it, baby.
Let's do it. First, if you haven't seen the first 3 weeks of Stardom Situms, go do that. Then come back here. But to start off, we always recap how we did last week. And the real stud of last week was Lamar Jackson, because of
I mean,
course he
yeah, that
is.
was a pretty surefire hit, but
Of course he was. But 39 points, turning in 4 touchdowns, and another 100-yard rushing day with a touchdown. He has been the clear QB1, at least in points total so far. And if you have him, you are very, very satisfied that you took the chance on
as long
Action
as he's able
Jackson.
to stay healthy, he is the definition of a must start in every single game, no matter who they play. Because even if he's not necessarily having the craziest star-studded passing game, he'll run all over him. So
Yeah, the other 5 guys, though, Matt Ryan threw 2 touchdowns in a win against the Chiefs. I hate the
better
Colts.
than I think we expected, but
Yeah,
still not the greatest fantasy day for a quarterback. So
no, you were probably fine if you sat him. David Montgomery left the game due to a knee and
yeah,
ankle injury.
he had
Only
that
one
little
point.
asterisk
Yeah, I
next
mean,
to him.
injuries always happen. It's a part of the game. But, James Conner, he was limited in usage, didn't find the end zone, only 8.7 points for him. Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't continue his record breaking, scorching
He
pace, but he turned in an
finally had a little
okay
bit of an
day.
off game, and the fact that his off game was still 13.3 points just shows that he definitely has the volume to put up big numbers
Yeah,
pretty
and
much any given day. So if that's his off day, I think you're still all right.
yeah, 6 catches, 9 targets, 73 yards, didn't find the end zone. That's still a fine day, and it really bodes well going forward. Juju Smith-Schuster actually kind of got acclimated.
He
Five
finally
for
actually
eight with
found
89 yards.
a little bit of
It
a
was
part in that offense, and he actually did get targeted a good amount and found some success. So I mean, some of that can be said of the fact that the Chiefs overall didn't necessarily have as much offensive success as they've had in other games. So I guess the Colts kind of did a good job of taking some of their other options away. So we'll see if that kind of comes to stick in future weeks, where he can get some of those more consistent targets and receptions, or whether or not that was kind of the odd one out.
And now we're going to move on to the starts and sits of this week, starting with our quarterback to start. T Law, Trevor Lawrence, the first overall pick from last year,
Man looked good.
is our QB to start, and he has looked better and better and better each
It's
week. And
amazing
against
what not being under
exactly,
Urban Meyer has done for him.
Doug Peterson has done a heck of a job with
I
Trevor
give him
Lawrence
credit.
and
I
this
was
Jaguars
not all that
offense.
hopeful.
38 points in a non-fantasy sense, but in a fantasy sense, 262 yards and 3 touchdowns for 25 points last week. It's looking really, really good for Trevor Lawrence going forward. They go up against the Eagles, who made life miserable for Carson Wentz. But considering how good the Eagles look offensively, the game script should force the Jaguars to throw the ball a lot. And it's a big if. If that Jaguars offensive line can hold, Trevor Lawrence will be in line for another good week. No reason he can't continue his hot start. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, like you said with the game script, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. I think their offense is going to do well enough to at least put Trevor Lawrence in a position to get you a good amount of points just by having that high volume of passing, even if they don't have nearly as much success, finding the end zone. But regardless, he should be a pretty solid start for next week.
Tim, throwing it over to you. Who is our quarterback to sit?
Quarterback to sit this week is not a quarterback we're particularly fond of, and that would be Carson Wentz of the anti-footballs. They go up against Dallas this week, and Dallas's defense has looked surprisingly staunch this year. They have not been giving up a particularly
Surprisingly up for debate. Staunch, absolutely.
yeah. I mean, and that's one of those things is they have kept a lot of teams from finding the end zone a lot of these games, and that was not particularly any different last week with that matchup against the Giants. And here's the thing: is they Wentz should be in the running for having plenty of volume, but the success, I don't know if it's really there. I don't think he'll have a very good time going against that defense because a lot of quarterbacks haven't. And last week against
Hmm.
Philadelphia, we talked about how the Eagles bottled the anti-footballs. He only had 211 yards through the air, no touchdowns or interceptions, but he did have a fumble. So that came up for only 8.64 points. So he's not looking like he's on a particularly hot streak going in. This matchup does not bode well for him turning that around.
Yeah, not great for Carson Wentz. He's turned the ball over at least once in every game so far, and he's probably going to turn it over multiple times against Dallas. And he's just,
Chances are
yeah, not a
either
great,
that or he'll get sacked plenty, which, as we
yeah.
saw, that they had a very, very difficult time against the Eagles with that.
Yeah, if you have better alternatives, sit him. If not, tough.
I mean, he could go for something, but the odds are it's not in your favor.
Yeah. So now we're going to go over our running back to start. And last week we had David Montgomery as our running back to start. We're going to flip the script to a different Bears running back because right now David Montgomery is not in line to play, and Khalil Herbert stepped up in a
In a
huge,
big fashion.
huge way. In a
Yeah,
win
he
against the
looked
Texans,
incredible.
he looked great. 22 total touches, 20 rushes,
He was
157
realistically
yards, and
kind of the
found the
sole
end zone
reason they won.
twice. Yeah. And David Montgomery not in line to play thus far as we're filming this on a Wednesday night. He has not practiced this week. And if for some reason Khalil Herbert is on your waivers, add him and start him because the best thing and really the only thing about this Bears team that's like
Is
any
running
good
the ball.
is their run
That's
game.
the only reason that they have won 2 games.
Exactly. Running in a monsoon, running at home, running on the road. Start Bears running
They'll run
backs.
through this whole season.
Tim, who we sitting at running back?
Sitting at running back this week is Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's not really had the production that fantasy managers were hoping for. He's only averaging 10.7 points per game. And he was a guy that going into the season, we had a lot of question marks around, given how much he played during the preseason, which confused some
Yeah, that was
people.
really, really weird. The Raiders hadn't picked up his
Yeah.
option as a first round pick, and it seemed like Zamir White was kind of like forcing his way in.
Yeah.
And I
It
mean,
made for a weird
that
situation.
hasn't come to fruition yet. But
No, but he
Josh
also hasn't
Jacobs,
proven himself
yeah.
as the standout running back one.
Hmm.
He's had less than 70 yards in each of his first 3 games. The Raiders' offense itself hasn't necessarily been in full swing, considering the fact that they haven't been able to find much success. And they match up with the Broncos this week, and that's a pretty tough defense. And I think that's probably going to be a matchup that forces them to go through the air a little bit more. So the only thing that does give him a little bit of the boost is the fact that he has found some success in the receiving game, which he's kind of flirted with in the past. Last week he had 5 receptions for 61 yards, which definitely does boost point wise. But we'll see
But
if
then
that game
again,
script.
for me,
I'm
I
not.
think that's kind of an outlier
I'm not sure if
because
that's something you can rely on with him.
yeah,
Yeah,
because he had 2 catches total in the first 2 games,
yeah,
and he hasn't had more than 20 carries, and it's just not lining up for Josh Jacobs. But
not really.
Tim, I'll let you take this one. Who's our wide receiver to start?
Okay, so for starting wide receiver, we're looking at a guy who has really kept boosting his stock week in and week out for these first couple of weeks, and that's Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns. He's really pushed his way into being that clear number one wide receiver in Cleveland,
I mean,
and
he
there's
already
really
was,
nobody.
but now there's
But
no
now
doubt.
he's actually playing like it too. The
Yes.
Cowboys are really seeing what they're missing by letting him go. And the last 2 games have been just absolutely incredible for him. In week 2 against the Jets, he had 9 receptions on 10 targets for 101 yards and a touchdown, which was good for 25.1 points. And this past week against the Steelers, he had 7 receptions on 11 targets for also 101 yards and a touchdown for 23.1 points. So he's been getting a ton of target share. He's finding ways to get open, and Brissett's been doing a very good job of getting him the ball. And that's just everything that you want in a receiver is what he's been bringing to the table right now. You're talking about a lot of targets. He's been finding the end zone, and he's a guy that he's going to get the ball no matter who they face.
Yeah. And on the flip side, typically we don't do this. Typically, we like to target different matchups around the world of fantasy
It
football.
shows you how much we dislike this this matchup.
However,
We have a
if it
little
gives me an excuse to crap on the Bears, I'm absolutely going to do it. And I'm taking it and running with it. Justin Fields stinks. He's
the
awful.
Bears
The
passing game
Bears,
has looked so atrocious.
and this isn't even like a anti Darnell Mooney thing, although I do think Darnell Mooney was incredibly overrated coming into the season. Unfortunately,
I just don't
Alan
think that
Lazard
the
and
talent
Romeo
of
Dobbs
Darnell
better,
Mooney.
but
Oh gosh, this is not what we're talking about. But I don't think the talent of Darnell Mooney can overtake the dysfunction of the Bears passing game. And that's the issue, is they can't get the ball to him basically at all.
no.
And you've seen the overall passing game of the Bears. They haven't found the end zone through the air. I'm not sure if they have it all in the last 2 weeks. Did they even in week one have they? Do they have a passing touchdown this year? Maybe one. I can't confidently say that they have, and that's just how bad that this passing game has looked. So against a Giants matchup this week, I don't think you can trust it any more than you have in any other week.
Justin Fields, through the first 3 weeks, has thrown 45 passes, which is absolutely pathetic. And when you
Just this
have
past week alone, Josh Allen had 43 completions.
and when you have a head coach, an offense that does not trust your quarterback, that proves to me two things. First of all, the quarterback stinks, and he has always stunk, and he is a
I
bust.
mean,
He is
if
an
they trusted him,
absolute
if they
bust, and
trusted
he
him more, they would run more passing plays. But they've
exactly.
seen that they have no success with it. So that's why they're going so run heavy.
Justin Fields is horrible. Second, it's that your wide receivers can't get anything going if you just don't throw the ball. And that's football logic 101. But
I'm honestly
I am
surprised they've had much success
Tim,
running the ball when they can't get anything going passing wise. Just defend
Tim,
the run.
I am just happy to spread my anti Justin Fields and anti Bears propaganda.
I
It
mean,
brings me so much joy.
you know me, I'm realistic as possible, and clearly things aren't working. Despite them winning games, that passing offense
Yeah.
is atrocious.
Do I hate Justin Fields? I think I hate Justin Fields. But Tim,
I would say, given the strong language you've used to describe him, I would describe it about as close to hatred as possible, if not.
well, Tim, if we remember way back in our first videos of the channel when Justin Fields was an Ohio State quarterback, I didn't like him then either. So
Sure.
it's not just because he's a Bears quarterback, although it certainly does help me not liking him. But that is all we got for this week of Stardom Situms. We love bringing you fantasy football content. We love bringing NFL content, and we have all of that and then some here on the Running the Table podcast. If you want it, we probably got it. All the sports you can need and then some. But if you want more from us, go watch some of our other stuff on the channel. And until next time, like and subscribe, and we out.